This is the Reparations Report, where the truth meets power and history meets accountability. This is your host, Chris Lee, and I am here with Kay Snyder, the author of Reparations 101 America Racial Economic Divide. All right. So I heard you say something earlier about you call this the People's Handbook. Could you elaborate on what that means?
Great. That's a great question. I wrote this book for the people. As you know, there are several committees and task force around the country, and they're producing reports. Now, I know that the one that came out a year ago in California had over 1,100 pages. Now, I turn to you and ask you, when was the last time you read an 1,100 page anything?
I don't think I have. That's too much reading.
And most people haven't. That's why I wrote that little ditty right there. It's less than 100 pages. You can read it in one day. It's not designed to be stuck up on a shelf like a encyclopedia. It's designed to be on your person, in your backpack, in your purse, in your desk, in your hands. That's why we call it the People's Handbook, because you can read it in one day and talk about it the very next day. And that's how change happens. It's actually a tool as much as anything else.
I like that. A tool. It's very much a tool. Knowledge is power. And I know people say it all the time. They loosely say it, but when you having this type of knowledge, you know what you're talking about. When you come to the table, you come to the table well prepared with your homework done, and you can demand what you need being articulated with it as well. But the most important thing about this book is here, it's only 100 pages. You can read this on an afternoon. It doesn't take half your life to read it. But once you read it, you are very informed. You know exactly what Mr. K. Snyder is talking about.
Absolutely. And when you know what you're talking about, you sound different than when you're guessing, don't you?
Yeah.
When you know what you're talking about, you say, yeah, and another thing, blah, blah, blah. And that's what this book allows you to do. It allows you access to this very important conversation. Make no mistake, reparations is going to happen in the next 10 years. I told you that, right? It's going to happen in the next 10 years. So the big point is that you get access to the conversation. Once you read that book, they can't lock you out of the conversation, because a lot of times that's what politicians have a tendency to do.
They do it all the time.
They do it all the time.
All the time.
So that's what this book is about.
Now, speaking about this book, what is the origin of this book? Like, how did this book come into play?
Well, you know, the original genesis of the book was I wanted, to give the people something that they could have access to the conversation on their own outside of the various state task force that are being formed in, let's say, California and New York, because what oftentimes happens when you get any number of people around a table, like I was telling you, if you got 14 people around a table to make a Thanksgiving dinner menu, how hard would it be?
Very hard. Very hard.
All right. Right. So just imagine how hard it is to get 14 people around any table to discuss the nuances and the parameters and the scope of what a reparations bill for the people might be.
I love that.
So I decided to circumvent that by expressing a singular will of a singular voice of a singular man, because as I said, I am you. See, I might as well be you. I might as well be you. I might as well be anyone who's not elite, who's not a politician, who doesn't have access to power and money and status, which means I'm like most of the 42 million African-American survivors of the slave industrial complex. And that's who this book is for.
In other words, this guy is what you call a real people's champ.
I hope so. The people's champ, that's what they call me.
I love it. I love it. Now, you just mentioned the slave industrial complex. I want to speak on that for a little bit. For those who don't know what that is, could you elaborate?
Sure. The slave industrial complex is, if you could see a shot back here, it's all the corporations and entities that still exist to this day that have their foundational origins in cold-blooded chattel slavery. And we're talking about dozens of names, if not hundreds of household names that you know and are subject to every single day. We're talking about all the major banks, all your Citibanks, your Wells Fargos, your JP Morgans, your Aetna insurance companies, your New York Life. They all come from slavery. Not some of them, not most of them, but all of them. When you get into our university system, all of our most famous and prestigious institutions come, yes, directly from slavery. I'm sure you've heard of a little university called Yale. I'm imagining.
Yes,
right?
I heard Yale.
Well, you know, Yale was a person, by the way. Yale, I like to call him the Elon Musk of slavery. Yale made so much money selling us that he founded a university that, check this out, don't let us in.
Oh, wow. Wow. The
Right?
audacity.
That is the slave industrial complex. And what this book does is it allows you to become more aware of the slave industrial complex and that it still exists to this day. So we're not talking about something that happened hundreds of years ago or even decades ago. We're talking about things and crimes that are ongoing, and the perpetrators and the profiteers are in your face, and that's no longer acceptable.
It is not.
It's no longer
That
acceptable.
is not.
It's no longer acceptable.
And parade around every day, hoping that we have a lack of knowledge on the history, on how they become who they are. America was built on the backs of the slaves. America was built on the blood, the sweat, the tears of our ancestors and our forefathers. And we barely get a mention. We rarely let into the White House unless we play on an NFL team or NBA team or we're some sort of celebrity. But we rarely get the respect that we deserve.
Or Kanye.
Or Kanye.
He gets in.
Or you may have to be Kanye.
He gets in.
But when you become outspoken as an African American, especially articulated, you become a threat to the society that's trying to hold you down, because you become more like the Morpheus when it comes to like the Matrix. You become more like the Neo. You're starting to see behind the veil. And
you know, that's a great thing that you brought up. The way I say it is that Reparations 101 is not here to teach you how to become a better slave. If you're looking for tips on how to get a better piece of the pie on the plantation, this isn't the book for you. Reparations 101 is here to provide intellectual clarity and moral conviction such that you can decide to demand your inheritance, which lies in, wait for it, the trillions. Can you say trillions?
Trillions.
Let's say it together, people. Trillions.
You heard him. I love that. I love that. Now that is great stuff there. Now I heard you mention before, and I want to make sure they know this because we talk a lot about this. The key pillars, the key content pillars. For those who don't know, could we explain that to the viewers?
Sure. And what I call the key content pillars is that when you get this little book, it's going to give you everything you need to know to engage in the conversation. Right now, when it comes to a conversation like reparations, it's a big word, but it's really very basic conversation. You want to know the what, right? The why, the how much. You want to know the how much.
Yep.
And you want to know the who pays.
Who paid me?
The what, the why, the how much, and the who pays me. Hold that book up. See that? You can get that in one day, and then you can go out and talk about it the next day. And that's how things change.
That's right.
So those are the key content pillars, because I feel as though you don't need to know every single tragedy that happened from 1492 when Columbus stumbled into the Americas, all the way to 2020 or 2019 when George Floyd got murdered in the street. You don't need to know every little nook and cranny of every little horrible thing that happened. You need to know the what, the why, the how much, and then
who paid me.
Who pays?
That's right. I love that. I love that. One last piece before we go on this segment here.
Sure.
I want to speak on this. I love the way you phrase this too, by the way. I heard you say America was first a slaveocracy before it was a democracy.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a fact, right? There's no disputing that America's origins and its colonial origin was based on the notion of slaveocracy. Slaveocracy being the notion that God gave the white man the franchise and dominion over all people, and that they had the right and franchise to enslave and subdue all peoples. And history teaches us that they pretty much went about doing that. Okay. But does that make it right?
No.
And does that make it democracy?
No, does not.
And if the profiteers and the perpetrators are still here, do they not have an obligation to be held accountable?
Everybody got to be held accountable.
What's more American than that?
Exactly. I love it. Welcome back to Reparations Report.
That's right.
All right. Now, we're going to talk about a few more things here on Reparations Report that we hold near and dear. This is something that's very important that we spoke about recently, and this is happy slaves.
Ooh, wow.
Might be a little touchy. Might be a little touchy, but we got to know.
We got to know.
We got to know.
Talk about, yes.
Got to know. So, the happy slaves, what would you identify a happy slave as? What would be a happy slave for those who don't know?
A happy slave is someone who finds contentment within the status quo.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, think of it as if all of us were on a large plantation and 96% of us are getting our butts kicked every day, but then 4 or 5 of us got a nice little cutaway on the plantation. They don't have to work as hard, and they got things good. In fact, the things you'll hear a happy slave say is, "Massa been good to me."
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And when you hear someone express that sensibility, they're saying that they acquiesce to the status quo. They're saying is that it's okay if you're hungry, if my belly's full. What I care about Chris's stomach full, because my belly's full. Well, guess what? When I say I'm all right and you're hungry, that makes us both less.
That's right.
It makes both of us less.
That's
so when you talk about what a happy slave is, and the reference being is that a thing I wrote and a thing that I say is that Reparations 101 isn't here to teach you how to become a happier slave. I'm not here to teach you how to be a better entrepreneur and get your own better slice of the American pie and be happier within your oppression. I'm not here to help you find peace within exploitation. No, I'm here such that you should decide to demand your inheritance and speak loudly and forcefully with intellectual clarity and moral conviction about what you're owed, and that no one can turn you away from what is intrinsically yours as a human being. So I'm not here to make you happy within your confinement.
No, you got to shake up the foundation. And that's what I see as the next point. Is shake up the foundation. We so used to being with the bare minimum. We so used to the 9-to-5 mentality. Yeah, you work, and you come home and you barely get by, but you're happy to say, well, at least I got a job. At least I got this. Well, I'm tired of at least. The at least scenario is old for me. I want more. I deserve more. My people deserve more.
Well, you're half right in that you're not content with saying, oh, well, I'm just happy to be alive. I'm just happy to have my little crust of bread, my little corner. Well, of course. And you know what? That's being humble. And we're naturally humble people. And that's okay. But it's hard to be humble when you're owed, wait for it, trillions. I'm going to say it again, you're owed, what's that word?
Trillions.
Trillions. He's owed trillions. I'm owed trillions. You're owed trillions. So I want you to get your mind around that and notice that. Here's one for you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had somebody owe you $100?
Yeah.
And have you ever had someone owe you $100, but you see them all the time?
Yes. And they act like they don't owe me.
And every time you see them, they don't have your $100.
It's always an excuse.
Right. And then maybe you see them out, maybe you see them buying a bottle of champagne, maybe you see them driving a new car, and they still owe you that $100. How does that make you feel?
Made me feel like I want to go find them.
Well, what if I told you it wasn't $100? What if I told you it was $1 trillion? How would you feel about that? That's what the information I'm trying to transmit. That you're owed $1 trillion, and you should not let them get away with it. You should not walk past that person smiling at you every day. In fact, they're asking you for your money. I guarantee you, you've given Bank of America more money than they've given you. How about that?
Yes.
If you roll it back, they're the ones that owe you money. But the reason you don't get the money that they owe you is because you don't talk about it.
Yeah, and they ain't gonna bring it up.
What he said. Say it again.
They ain't gonna bring it up.
They're not gonna bring it up. And that's what that little book is for. You can read it in one day. You can read it in one day and then talk about it tomorrow. And you know why that's important, Chris?
Why is that important?
Because the point of my book is to make attitudes change.
That's right.
And once attitudes change, that's how real progress happens. I want you to think for one moment. You're old enough. Yep. I see a couple grays.
A couple grays in here. Yeah.
I want you to think about where the topic of gay marriage was 25 years ago.
Yes.
Couldn't even say it, could you?
No.
Obama was against gay marriage, right? You couldn't even say it. You couldn't even mention it. Why? Because it was taboo.
That's right.
But it's 2025, and where is gay marriage today?
Pretty much at the forefront of marriages.
It's in all 50 states. You can get gay married in any state, right? Think about where medical marijuana was 25 years ago.
Yes.
Right? It was very clandestine. You had to know a guy with a secret number, and you have to drive and you have a special knock, and the guy throw the weed at you, and you have to drive off, and it's a whole mess. Now, marijuana is legal in over 30 states.
You get a little medical card, go in there and get your strand and go on about your day.
And the key connection, Chris, is attitudes change.
That's right.
Attitudes change. At a certain point, people started talking about marijuana laws and why is some kid in jail for 35 years for selling a joint when the big pharmaceutical companies got the entire country hooked on oxycodone, and they didn't even get an hour in jail. You know what I'm saying? So attitudes change is the point of that argument, and that once people start talking about the reparations conversation, attitudes are going to change. That's why I can say and look in this camera with complete confidence that reparations will be law of the land in the United States in the next 10 years. Mark it. Mark him. Read this book and don't make me a liar. Because once you read this book, once enough people read this book, once 1 million Black people read this book, we'll have critical mass competence, and then that'll shift the tide of public opinion. And once people talk, attitudes change. And once attitudes change, then the truth becomes self-evident and the law becomes easier to pass. And the good news, people, the good news, Chris, the good news is that I'm here. So it's already started. So it's not something that's a theory that's in your mind. You're not saying, oh, I hope somebody comes along to change things and gets people. The change is here. Be the change. Read this book and be the change yourself. Once you read this book, you become a part of the solution. You go on Amazon, you get Reparations 101, you read it in one day, and then you start talking to people. You talk to your neighbor, you talk to your family, you talk to your cousins, you talk to your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That's right.
Am I asking you to march?
No.
Am I asking you to boycott?
Nope.
Am I asking you to go sing songs and fight things?
Nope.
I'm asking you to read one book.
And have a conversation about that book.
And free your mind.
Which is Knowledge in Motion.
That's Knowledge in Motion. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, sir.
We've got a fantastic clothing line, incidentally called Knowledge in Motion. And what you have is you see my t-shirt here, you see my hat, Reparations 101. It's a physical entity. It's a living, breathing embodiment of progress. So when you buy Knowledge in Motion gear, you're saying, I'm aware and I'm proud of it, and I ain't going nowhere.
That's
all right.
right.
So when you go on Reparations 101, if you follow us on Instagram, if you follow us on Facebook, find out where you can get Reparations 101 Knowledge in Motion apparel and be a part of the solution and show it and look fresh like me.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
I appreciate that, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And another thing is, man, just got a fresh cut today, by the way, for this show here. And one thing at my barbershop, me and my barber at our barbershop, we talk a lot about a lot of different things here. Yes. And I've noticed conversations like this are normally had in barbershops. Has some of the most intellectual conversations in barbershops. I want to ask you, have you ever ran across this conversation in barbershops with your book, or ever spoke on that? Or
well, you know, I actually have a initiative entitled the Barbershop Revolution. Hey, if you're a barbershop, you're Black America's living room. Okay.
Yeah.
The barbershop is Black America's living room, right? That's where we come. We let our hair down. It's where we go after we go to work or before we go out for the weekend. It's the place we come to interact with one another in a relaxed environment where we can speak freely. And we don't get that every place. So I've taken it upon Reparations 101 is actively going to barbershops around the country. We're in barbershops. If you're in Harlem, they got barbershops there. You're going to find a copy of that book there. If you're in shops in Atlanta, if you're in shops in DC, if you're in shops in North Carolina, Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, you're going to go into a barbershop and you're going to find that book. Shout out to all my barbers in the Barbershop Revolution. Thank you very much. If you're a barbershop, if you want to have something better than rims and Shannon Sharp to talk about in your barbershop, hit us up. Reach out to the Reparations Report. We'll get you a copy of Reparations 101 so that you can join this conversation that's about you. It's for you. It's not against you. It's Reparations 101. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Anytime. Now, there's some going to be some live shows going on here on Instagram, I'm sure, right?
Well, you know, it's June, means Juneteenth. It means that we're going to be out. We're in public. We're at the fairgrounds in, I believe, Greensboro, the Piedmont Triad Fairplex on Wednesday, June 19th at the Juneteenth Soul Celebration there in Greensboro. We're also going to be in Dorothea Dix Park in Raleigh on the 14th of June. That's Saturday after next coming up. So please come up to our booth, buy a copy of Reparations 101, take a picture, get your copy signed, and become a part of this conversation, because that's all it really takes is people talking. And that's what the Reparations Report is about. And that's what Reparations 101 is here to do. And that's why I'm the People's Champ.
There you go. There you have it. Remember, find the book in Amazon. Go ahead and get it. 100 pages. And remember what he said about the brooms with the 100 straws, all the straws together creates a broom. You get enough people to get this here, the conversation becomes action, which is knowledge in motion.
And that's what it's about. Reparations 101. Thank you, my man. I appreciate it.